I start with story. And I mean, this is one of those one of a kind stories also. I mean, this is unique. We call it in Hollywood, we call it a fresh story. This is not a story that you hear every day. And
True.
in fact, when I first started on it, I thought for sure somebody else would have picked up on this as the unique, incredible story that it is. And I'm still pinching myself going, I get to tell the story. Oh my
Yes.
God, you know.
Yes.
So but that's where it starts. And then it is little by little, one foot in front of the other, talking to people and being very open and authentic about what is it that we're trying to do here.
Yeah. Three things you're going to learn from today's episode. Number one, how a group of Massachusetts students rewrote history. Number two, the power of storytelling to right historic wrongs. And number three, what it takes to bring history to life on screen. Welcome to this episode of the Heartbeat for Hire podcast. I feature Olympians, CEOs, disruptors, authors, professional athletes, and the best of the best, where they share their stories of resilience with my lens on leadership and culture. Let's get started. What do you get when you combine an award-winning filmmaker whose work has lit up Tribeca and Camera Image, a storyteller on a mission to amplify women's voices through powerful narratives, a visionary producer behind the projects that turn history into hope? You get Annika Hylmo, the creative force behind The Last Witch, a film that reclaims a piece of American history and shines a light on the power of courage, community, and storytelling. And this story hits home for me, literally. It was filmed in my hometown. I don't know why I'm getting emotional. And my own kids and my cousin played a big part in bringing this to life. Welcome to the show, Annika.
Thank you, Lindsay. Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure, and this story really does hit home, and I didn't expect to get emotional about it, but I love it so much. So I'm so happy that you're here to tell it. So, as I do with all of my shows, would you kindly share a little bit of your story?
Of course, I'll keep it short because, as with any story, there's a lot that goes into it. I come with a background in academia. So I started out, I got my PhD in communication from Purdue University and love teaching, which is also going to be a part of today's story because I love teaching and I love connecting with people. So my background is very much that of storytelling. Communication is about stories, as you know, the stories we tell each other. And then from there, I ended up going into filmmaking and got to know some wonderful people, especially at the school, again, education, a school called the American Film Institute, where I've also found many of my collaborators on the project that I'm working on now. And these days, I have the privilege of being a full-time filmmaker working on a documentary that we'll be talking about today. It's called The Last Witch. And you and I have known each other through that project for a couple of years now, since
Right.
2022.
That's right. It's amazing how much has transpired since it began and how much my kids have grown since it started. So let's just roll up our sleeves and tell the story of what is The Last Witch and why is it coming to life?
The Last Witch is the story of a middle school teacher and her civic students who worked tenaciously to clear the name of a woman who was still convicted of witchcraft in Massachusetts since the 1692 Salem Witch Trials. And they were successful in doing so. So they worked so hard, thanks to their work, their research, and their tenacious, again, calling and emailing and sending letters to the legislature in Massachusetts. They changed the law. They persuaded the legislature to change the law, and they changed history in the process. And these kids were, what, about 13 at the time?
Yeah, eighth
That
grade.
is an incredible story. That's
Yeah,
an
I want people to understand the gravity of what Annika just said because everyone is familiar with the Salem Witch Trials. You all learned about it, whether you read the Scarlet Letter or you learned about it in history. And if you've been to Salem, Massachusetts, you can really feel the gravity of what that was all about. And so to put this in the hands of eighth graders and say, okay, you have an opportunity to change something. I don't think they understood the impact that that was going to have. But what it ultimately did was my children can say they helped to end the Salem witch trials, which is a big, bold statement. But it's true. By exonerating Elizabeth Johnson Jr., She was the last witch to have her name cleared. And in my town, North Andover, her presence is still felt. There's a street that's named after her. Her house is still here. It's a really big name that still floats around here. So um, I think now that my kids are seniors, it's been a little while since we started. Um, they understand that the impact that that had. So can we dive a little deeper into the uncovering of this all and maybe how you found the story to start?
Of course. So let's start at the beginning, as it were. I did not come in at the very, very beginning, though, but I found this story in the fall of 2021. I was doing some research into the Salem Witch Trials, which a lot of people don't realize, but those court transcripts are actually available online so you can read them. And it is horrific reading when you
Horrific.
sit down and you actually look at it and see what happened and start to realize that these are real human beings that we're talking about. They're not figments of our imagination. They live, breathe, just like all of us. So I was following a path down the Reverend Francis Dane, who was the minister, the elder minister in Andover at the time. It was North Andover and Andover were
It
one and
was
the same.
one, yeah.
Was one. But so he was the local minister, the elder. And through him, I found this story about his granddaughter, Elizabeth Johnson Jr., who was convicted of witchcraft. And I call it criminal witchcraft to make sure that everybody's happy with that as well. But criminal witchcraft. So she
Yeah.
was convicted of a crime that was about the worst of the possible crimes that you could possibly do. It meant that you had made a pact with the devil back in the day.
Right.
And once you made a pact with the devil, you could cause all sorts of damage and upheaval to society. You were the worst of the worst, worse than a terrorist today, worse than a pedophile, the worst. And so I came across this story and got to know some of the people that were involved. So I talked to Ms. Carrie LaPierre, who was your students or your kids' teacher at the time,
Right.
and asked her if she would be coming along, she would be willing to come along on this journey. And she looked at me kind of going, sure. And the rest is sort of history. Through her, I learned that she found this story through the author Richard Haidt, and I have to give him a shout out in this as well because he wrote the book In the Shadows of Salem, the story about North Andover and Andover's experience during the witch trials. And he was the one who discovered that Elizabeth wasn't cleared yet.
Yeah.
Everybody else was, but she was left.
Yeah,
So
and
that
from what I understand, and you tell me if I'm right, but I did hear that um she was she was mentally delayed, and so that was probably yet another reason why she was convicted and a reason why she wasn't cleared. So this was really righting a lot of wrongs. And I'd love to just kind of dive in a little bit on some of the history of what happened because, the first eighth grade class that tried this didn't get it passed. And so when it became my kids' assignment, my cousin is still the Senate Majority Leader for the Massachusetts Senate, and her name's Cindy Cream and or Cynthia. She's Cindy, my cousin. But my kids reached out to her and said, can you help? And there was another representative, Diana DeZoglio at the time, and I think the mayor of Salem got involved. And the kids were able to pull together these resources, and the women got behind it. And I think the coolest part was they attached it to a budget bill. And
yeah,
so the budget bill is what ultimately got it through. And it had a real reverberation because it wasn't, and this is, I think, part of your discovery too, because it was not just this local story. It made international news. And one of my favorite parts was Connecticut. They also had witch trials. Like this wasn't the only place in the world that was doing this, but Connecticut went and exonerated like 19 witches after that. They weren't going to be outdone by a bunch of eighth graders. So I love that it had that kind of impact. And I think it's super super special. But you even took it a step further because you went and did tons of research. Talk a little bit about some of the people that you were talking to, because I mean, you had historians and authors and all kinds of people.
Absolutely. Of course, this has grown into a huge project. I thought this was going to be a small project, much
Yeah.
like Ms. LaPierre thought that this was going to be a small project when she started it, but it's taken on much, much more weight and gravitas than that as this journey has continued. So first, to just back up a little bit in the story, when the kids first started doing this, it did take two cohorts, 2 years of students to do this project, which ultimately was basically just to insert a line in previous legislature that had said that they were not witches. They were not guilty. They should have been proclaimed innocent a long time ago. And it didn't happen that fast. In fact, when they finally got the bill to go through the Senate and through the legislature, it takes some time and it went to committee, and committee has a lot of work on their plates. So they put it out to study, which, as some of the kids were saying, they put it to purgatory.
Yeah.
Nothing was
Where
going
bills
to
go
happen.
to die. Yeah.
It was there to die. So nothing was going to happen to it. And then gradually so the kids had to really jump on that and start sending those letters and those postcards and all that they did. And it was brought back through a debate in the Senate, which included Senator DeZoglio, Senator Lovely, who is from Salem, and Senator Cream, who's your cousin.
Mhm.
And through that, ended up being attached as an amendment to the state budget, which passed in July of 2022. And that did close the Salem Witch Trials. So it's really incredible. It's that part of the journey is incredible in and of itself. But then from there, my work in this has been to dig deeper into this. There is that question, why was this put out to study? Why didn't it just go through? Why didn't it just sail through? Because it would have been self-evident, right? And questions that really go to, how is this reflected today in society? Why does this matter? Why does it resonate around the world? And what this impact really means is that we are taking a look at historical wrongs. And we're not just talking about, well, if we don't learn from history, it's going to repeat itself. And then we don't learn from history and it repeats itself. We're actually putting a stop to it. And the kids did this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I,
So
I love
it's
that
been a journey.
perspective, and I love that that was so much of the purpose of why you wanted to create this film. And when we first met, you were adamant to me that this was kind of be from the perspective of the kids and their experience. And you have so much footage of the kids, and you're asking them questions about like, what did you think about this? And they chimed in, and I look at those images of these little kids, and now they're heading off to college and I keep telling them, like, you better write your essay about this. This is so good.
I don't think they realize how good it is, even because it's such a unique project and opportunity.
Yeah,
I mean, kudos to Ms. LaPierre for taking on a project like this, where it's
yeah,
hands-on applied learning. One of the things that I hear from the kids over and over again is that they could do it again. They now know that they can,
yeah.
and they
Well,
now know that they have a voice.
and that I think is the most important piece of it all. And just when you think you're incapable of making change, here's a bunch of eighth graders who couldn't even vote and they made change. And I just feel like, especially now in the climate we're in, really having those thoughts about, no, I'm capable of doing big things, and there is a way, there is a means to an end, there is a way for me to chart this course. So we couldn't do this show without talking about leadership. And you had to pull together so many different people and different roles and citizens. Talk a little bit about that experience and how did you get people interested? How did you get people to want to work on it, to want to talk to you? Like, what was your approach?
Well, I start with story. And I mean, this is one of those one of a kind stories also. I mean, this is unique. We call it in Hollywood, we call it a fresh story. This is not a story that you hear every day.
True.
And in fact, when I first started on it, I thought for sure somebody else would have picked up on this as the unique, incredible story that it is. And I'm still pinching myself going, I get to tell the story. Oh my
Yeah.
God, you know.
Yeah.
So but that's where it starts. And then it is little by little, one foot in front of the other, talking to people and being very open and authentic about what is it that we're trying to do here.
Yeah.
And continuing to have those conversations, ongoing conversations, and staying as open as possible to the people that are participating to say, whether you're in front of the camera, you behind the camera, this is where we are with the project, and here's how we're moving forward. And I think that's really important because we have moved forward rather quickly for a documentary like this. Most documentaries take about twice as long to get to the finish line, and we're inching closer to it. But it is a journey. It's very much an up and down journey, a roller coaster. Do we have funding? Do we have funding to get to this next shoot that we need to get to? Do we have funding to piece it together? It takes a long time to edit a film like this. So it is, to me, communication is the number one thing. And then it's also about having standards, which is a tough thing to say, but
Mm.
I'm an entrepreneur in this also. I'm a business owner. And I have an incredible story that, as you said, it's reverberated around the world. So I have that responsibility. I have the responsibility to the people in Essex County where this happened to
Yep.
tell the story in a trustworthy way. And probably one of the biggest responsibilities that I have is to those kids. You know, we're talking about young adults who have been part of this project and whose parents had to sign the release forms to say that they could,
Yep.
you know, and now those kids are turning 18 if they haven't already, which
Yeah.
is right. It's astonishing, right? But so I have that responsibility to so many people.
Mm.
And that means making sure that I pick and choose the right people to work with also in my team. So as well, in front of the camera, behind the camera, and
And you've
really,
got some all-stars on your team. I mean, I met them, and I think your cinematographer, he's a super recognizable guy, but he films for The Amazing Race,
yeah.
right? And I think his talent, which was revealed to me, was that he can really go backwards very quickly, which you don't know how hard that is until you try it.
He dances with his camera, as somebody put it. Yeah, he does. The team is incredible that I get to work with. Our cinematographer, Peter Sickhart, he is somewhere in the world currently filming The Amazing Race. And then we're aiming to film our last round of scenes coming up very shortly, and he'll be back for that. But I wouldn't finish this or do this without
Yeah.
anybody.
Well, I just love that, periodically we get to see each other. And we were with the Peabody Essex Museum. They did a whole exhibit on this, and you hadn't seen the kids in a while, and they're a lot taller than they were. And, these kids, just for the audience, they got to be on Kelly Clarkson on her show talking about this. So this has taken a whole bit of gravity, and it's just so cool to be a part of it. So when do you hope it's going to be released?
Right now, the goal is probably late 26, but more likely 27.
Okay.
And the reason for that is because it's such a big story. We have to protect it. I'm very protective of this and not letting too many other people into it who might want to change it in some way too soon. And that also means looking at a fairly traditional release distribution route, which
Mm.
starts with major film festivals to get the word out and then spread it. So about there, our internal community will get probably a sneak peek access before that, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, but around there is what we're looking at.
And okay, so we're going to get into some more questions in just a second, but I have a treat for our listeners. So if you've been listening to the show for a while, you know I love a little luxury, I love a good deal, and I've got one for you. So Cozy Earth, if you've never heard of Cozy Earth, this is the most luxurious bedding, bathrobes, sweaters, all kinds of beautiful things. It's been on Oprah's favorite thing list 9 times. If you go to cozyearth.com and use the code LEADWITHHEART, you're going to get 41% off your next order, which is fantastic. I get commission too, which is amazing. So if you're going to do some holiday shopping, go check out Cozy Earth. And guys, if you like the show and you like these conversations, please subscribe. Go leave a 5-star review, leave an actual review. These things matter so much. It helps me grow the show. We just got our second award. So, so grateful for you listening. So, thank you for doing that. Keep it up and tell your friends. Okay, back to the show. Okay, Annika, what inspires you?
People inspire me. Working with really good people. And you mentioned my team. My team is incredible. I'm so proud of every single person that's on there. And like I said, many of us go back to that community that is the American Film Institute, and being able to work with real storytellers on this. And then to, at the same time, be able to tell this incredible story with people who make a difference. People are passionate about what they do. People who really care and who want to have conversations about difficult subjects sometimes, and who do want to make a difference with a smile. You know,
Hmm.
and that's really important to me too. So do it with a smile. We get frustrated so easily, but
I
we
agree.
can enjoy the process, even if the world sometimes feels a little topsy-turvy.
Ugh, yeah, well said. And what would you like your legacy to be?
Ooh, my legacy would be that I think that is exactly what my legacy would be. It's to not be afraid of taking steps, and to do it, I call it baby steps. And you just take a step in one direction. If you ever chased a toddler across the room, you know how fast they're going to get there, right? It's really taking all those small steps and follow through, have that goal, have that target, and do it. And would like to see more people be inspired to do that.
Mm.
And I know that this film, it's already made that kind of an impact with everybody that's involved. And I'd like to continue to have that kind of an impact to inspire.
I love that. What's next for you?
So right now it is finishing The Last Witch. It's a huge project. It's so that's the next thing. After that, I am going to do a short film, a narrative short film about a former ICU nurse who finds a
Mm.
companionship with a former racehorse, and they look forward to a future together as partners in equine therapy.
Oh, cool. That's
That's my
amazing.
small next project. And then we've got a couple of ideas in terms of what the future projects will be also beyond that. But there's always another good story to be told.
I love it. How can people find you and how can they support you?
So lots of ways to support. They can find me on social media, and I think you've got some
We're going to
links
share all those. Yep.
on that, right? So social media is the number one place to look to find out more about The Last Witch. It's thelastwitchfilm.com. And by way of supporting, we need lots of support to get this done. At the onset, it's follow us on all social media. That's the number one thing. But we also need funding for this. We're independently funded, and we are funded through a fiscal sponsor, which means that individuals who are in a position where they want to get really passionate and join a passionate project, you may be able to get a tax deduction from that. So immediate return on that. So those are some of the best ways to support us right now. Just join the community because it really is a community, and we do our best to stay in touch with everybody that wants to be a part of the process and the project.
Well, this has been such a joy to be a part of, to watch, I even got to be on camera for a minute. I'm sure it's on the cutting room floor, but to watch my kids go through this has been such an extraordinary experience. And to be a part of changing history is not something everyone can say. So it's a huge honor, and I'm just so glad to have met you through it all. And guys, please go check out the lastwitchfilm.com. Go follow Annika everywhere she exists. All the socials are going to be in the show notes. And again, if you love the show, just like I do, please share it with your friends. Tell people about it. These are some of my favorite stories with some of the best people out there, and I want to just keep doing it. So thank you for listening. Get out there, lead with heart. Annika, thank you so much. You are a wonderful guest.
Thank you so much for having me, Lyndsay. This has been wonderful. It's been so much fun. And say
Amazing.
hi to your kids for me as
I
well.
will.
They
I
wouldn't
will.
I didn't say hi to them, right?
I will definitely say hi to them. We'll make sure that they watch this. Thanks, everyone. Get out there, lead with heart, and have a great day. Thanks for listening to this episode of Heartbeat for Hire. I hope you enjoyed what you heard. If you did, please subscribe to my YouTube channel or consider leaving a 5-star review and a great rating at Spotify or Apple. Thank you so much for your support. Have a great day.